Isn't it frustrating waking up tired because you stayed up all night arguing with your partner, only to have to drag yourself into work the next day? And then, on top of it, you have to deal with that one coworker that has zero respect for anyone, or a boss who seems to lack leadership skills, only holding that position because of the Peter principle. And if you don't know what that is, that's the idea of people being promoted to the level of their incompetence. Yes, you heard that right, incompetence. I completely understand how exhausting it can be to work in environments where authority triumphs over common sense. And I really empathize with those of you who have to deal with this stuff daily. Dealing with people and relationships, it can be crazy at times. I met this guy the other night while I was out with my husband. He seemed like he had it all going on, honestly. He was handsome, well-spoken, and seemed very confident. It didn't take me long to find out that he had this my way or the highway type of attitude. And in reality, what I thought was confidence was ego. I shot my husband a text to see if he wanted to go out on the river for the day. You know, there's just something about being on the water that always helps me to reset and let go of whatever is weighing me down. Of course, he agreed it was a good idea. So I finished up what I was doing, spent some more time with my dog. She was just in one of those moods where she just wanted to be loved on, and I did not mind a bit just spending a little extra time with her this morning, hanging out, you know, a little girl time. While my husband finished up his work day, I decided to head on outside just to relax for a little bit, get a little fresh air, get some sun. I know that pushing through isn't always the answer. Sometimes it's just about pausing, taking a step back, reflecting on what's really going on inside. I guess heading out to the water is my way of hitting reset, hoping it will help me find a little clarity. I hung out in my little dog pile here for a bit and decided to just go ahead and get the chickens taken care of. I needed to give them their food for the day, so I went ahead and got that out of the way. I heard my husband pull up, so I went ahead and collected the eggs that had already been laid today, and I headed on back inside to get ready to go. Hey guys, check it out. We got some sandwiches made. Gonna load the boat up and we are headed to the Neuse River. See you guys there. Okay y'all, we made it to the river. We're getting ready to put this boat in. A little concerned. It looks like the water level is a little low, but we'll still go try it out. Okay guys, change of plans. We are gonna head over to the Cape Fear River. Neuse River was just too low today, so we are not even gonna play with that anymore. To the Cape Fear. All right guys, we made it to Cape Fear. We're gonna hop on in this river real quick. See if we could find us a little something in there. See how low the water is there. I don't know what it looks like yet, so let's go check it out. So let's get back to the guy I met over the weekend. I had this chance to attend this gathering where I met like I said, this guy who was going through a divorce. That seems to be the hot topic surrounding me lately. He's not the first that I've met lately that's going through a divorce. It seems to be quite a popular event taking place in my age group. So it's been kind of bothering me. And with him, at first glance, he seemed like the epitome of this confident guy. He was well-spoken, put together, self-assured. I found myself wondering, how could anyone want to leave a relationship with this guy? But as we spoke, something shifted. He began to share his frustrations, just venting about his situation. I don't know what it is. I tend to attract, people who are hurting, and I really don't mind if maybe I have some insight that could help lead to a solution. Then hey, let's talk about it. But for him, it wasn't long before some of his words really started standing out to me. It was phrases like, well, that's just how I am, or, I'm not the one that needs to change. These phrases just really made me pause. I started to realize that what I had mistaken for confidence might actually be something else. Ego. And that's when it hit me. Sometimes we have a tendency to confuse confidence with ego, and the difference between the two can make or break a relationship and how we show up in the world. I know from personal experience here, ego is something that myself and my husband have had to battle over the years. And it wasn't just something I dealt with in our relationship, it was something in my professional environment also. So let's talk about it. Confidence versus ego. So what's confidence? Confidence is having a quiet assurance in who you are. It's knowing your worth without needing to shout it out from the rooftops. It is actually rooted in self-awareness, humility, and the ability to see things from a different perspective. Ego, on the other hand, often hides behind this mask of certainty. It's defensive, rigid, and obsessed with being right rather than understanding others. And let me tell you, when that man kept repeating, "That's just how I am," I realized it wasn't confidence speaking. It was ego protecting itself, unwilling to adapt or consider another perspective. And that's where the confusion lies. On the surface, confidence and ego might look similar, but their core motivations are completely different. You guys, when I say I tried and I tried to get this man to just see things from a different point of view, it was useless. He was not budging. So how do we recognize ego in ourselves or in somebody else? Alright, here are a few signs to watch out for. The first one is defensiveness. When we react defensively to feedback instead of being open to it, that is often a sign that we have ego at play. I want to make one thing really clear. None of us are immune to this. We all have egos, and it shows up in so many different ways. But the key is catching it before it starts to damage our relationships and our personal growth. Number 2 is an inability to admit mistakes. If we are truly confident, then that is going to allow us to own up to our mistakes and our faults. Ego, on the other hand, that is going to insist that we are never wrong. I mean, let's be real. I've had those moments where I thought, I can't possibly be wrong. But then, oops, turns out I was very wrong. And guess what? The world did not end. Number 3 is a need for validation. Now, ego often craves external approval, and confidence, that comes from within. The next time we catch ourselves feeling defensive or like we have something to prove, maybe we could just pause for a second. Ask ourselves, is this ego talking? Am I trying to control the situation? Trust me, a simple pause can make all the difference in the world. Number 4 is a fixed mindset. Now, ego is unwilling to learn or grow, and this is because it is tied to the idea of being right. On the other hand, confidence, it welcomes growth and new perspectives. Now, we have all been in situations where we wanted things to go our way, and it's tough to let go of control. But when we do, we make room for understanding and growth for not just ourselves, but for the people around us, the people that we are actually in relationship with, whether it be personal or professional. Something so beautiful happens when we are able to just keep our own ego in check. It actually makes us stronger. It's not a weakness to admit when we've been wrong or to listen to someone else's perspective. It's a strength, and it opens up so much room for connection and growth. How often do we find ourselves digging in our heels because we are sure that we are right? Do you notice that the more that we try to control a situation, the more it slips away? I know, I've been there too. Maybe it was a disagreement at work where we just knew we were right and we could not possibly see a different perspective from another person. Or maybe in our relationships, we felt like our way is the only way to solve a problem. That is not confidence talking. That's ego. One thing we really need to understand about ego is that it thrives on an illusion of permanence, identity, and control. Ego often clings to labels, possessions, and this rigid belief because it wants to feel secure. It tells us that I have this, I control this, and I am this. But the thing is, life is fluid. Things change, people change, and circumstances are so many times out of our control. We begin being clingy, which creates suffering. We start to define ourselves by our identities, whether it's our job, what we own, our beliefs. And we begin to hold on so tightly that we become rigid. The ego does not want to lose control, so it resists change at all costs. It keeps us stuck, holding on to things that may no longer serve us. And it's all just to maintain this illusion. This need for control and permanence shows up in our relationships too, both the professional and personal ones. I'm sure you've dealt with someone who constantly points the finger or blames others or refuses to acknowledge when they're at fault for a mistake. That's ego at work. It creates this super uncomfortable environment where there's no room for flexibility, understanding, or growth. In relationships, when we cling to a self-righteous, egocentric attitude, it leads to finger-pointing and judgment. We disregard others' perspectives and needs, and because of our ego, we convince ourselves that we are always right. The problem with this is that it actually limits our personal growth and the overall health of our relationships, whether it's our marriage or our friendships or our work relationships. This my way or the highway mentality really tends to just push people away. Now, when we give people an ultimatum, do things my way or you can leave, most of the time, they're going to choose the highway. And why? Because no one wants to be in a relationship, personal or professional, where their perspective is not valued or their needs aren't considered. Now let's talk about some ways we can check our ego, because we've all been there. Nobody's immune. Here are some practical steps we could take to keep our ego in check. Number 1 is to pause before reacting. When we feel that defensive reaction bubbling up, we can just take a breath and ask ourselves, is this ego talking? Number 2, we can be curious and not so certain. Instead of assuming that we know everything, we can adopt a mindset of curiosity. We could start asking more questions and be more open to possibility. We can admit that we do not have all the answers. Number 3, let's embrace vulnerability. Now, confidence comes from knowing that it's okay not to be perfect. We can be willing to admit to our faults and show that we can be our authentic selves. Number 4 is for us to practice gratitude. Gratitude can help our egos stay in check by shifting the focus from what we lack or need to prove to appreciating what we already have. And finally, number 5, we can seek some honest feedback. This means we want to surround ourselves with people who are willing to tell us the truth, even if it stings. This is essential for us to hear perspectives outside of our own little bubble. When we are led by confidence, everything changes. We approach life with a willingness to learn, grow, and understand others. When we're not afraid to be wrong because we know our value doesn't depend on being right all the time, we don't need constant validation because our self-worth is rooted deep inside of us. So remember, the next time we catch ourselves feeling defensive or unwilling to listen, let's pause and reflect and realize that growth starts with self-awareness. I'm Felicia. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.